If you are someone that absolutely hates getting up to an alarm clock, you're going to want to listen to this.
And that's because we talked to Tadas. He is the founder of Tavo, and they are a wrist silent alarm technology company that helps you wake up in light sleep. And today, Chloe and I get to chat with him. It's a fun time. He went from traumatic brain injury to having to sleep 10 hours a day to starting this company. So it's a really cool story. And at the very end, Chloe and I decide that
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Decision Lab podcast. Today, we're talking to Tadas Kunickas. He is the founder and CEO of Tavo Sleep. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Chloe and Cody. It's a pleasure to be here. But you did butcher the company name, though. It's Tabo Sleep. We can run with it. I have no problem because a lot of different people say a lot of different ways, and the name is kind of like meant to be like that, like Sony. So like Sony, a lot of different people say Sony, differently, I guess, in different countries. But yeah, I mean, we've heard Tabo, we've heard Tabo, we've heard a bunch of different things.
Where does the name come from?
The name is actually a Lithuanian name. It means yours in Lithuanian. Yeah, so I'm, I could say 75% Lithuanian. My parents came from Lithuania. They emigrated into the U.S., into Chicago. And yeah, so, I mean, when creating the company, it was like, Tabo was like just something that was arbitrary, didn't really mean anything in English, but also in Lithuanian, it's this like secret meaning of like yours, not secret, just it means yours. And so when developing a personal alarm clock, something that only wakes you up, Tabo was a very, very much fitting name for us.
So tell us a challenge that you've had to go through or that you've gone through in your life that's kind of turned you into who you are today, that got you here.
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was a junior in high school, I had a traumatic brain injury and I was longboarding down a hill and I fell on some sand and cracked my skull and basically had to go through this huge like accident operation. When I fell, I didn't remember anything. Like I'm just telling you from what my parents have told me and what other people have told me. But I was in a place where there was no service and somehow reached my parents when we were on vacation, and they drove over, found me, and saw that like I was in a really, really bad condition. And I had, they didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was like not making sense. I was speaking like gibberish, and they were like, all right, we have to take you to the hospital. And so then they took me to the hospital, to a local, I think it was Indiana hospital. And from there, the doctors were like, well, this is kind of serious. We might, we're going to have to airlift him to a more serious hospital in Chicago. And so I was put into an induced coma, was airlifted to this hospital. Doctors had to undergo like a emergency surgery. They had to take half of my skull out. Eventually, essentially the doctors didn't know whether I was going to wake up the same, different, what my mental state was going to be. And my parents were also completely in the dark. So the surgery, I don't know, lasted about 2 hours. I came out of it, and then I was still in an induced coma. And a couple days later, it was actually on my dad's birthday, like opened my eyes and said my first words. And these words weren't like English words. They were just like baby words, because my brain was being rebooted from the ground up. And like I woke up screaming Lithuanian because that was my first language, and like screaming at these doctors, whatever, just like a little kid. It was a very weird feeling because I knew that something had happened. I also knew that everything was going to be okay. I was also then this like innocent, like I had this innocence in me, and I was surrounded by a bunch of doctors, and I thought I could speak, but I actually couldn't speak. And so after that, I had to go through like 2 months of rehab to actually relearn how to speak, how to eat, how to walk, how to use the right side of my body, all like basically like being rebooted from, I don't know, when you're born, but it was like an accelerated process. Like I learned how to walk again in a week, how to like use the right side of my body. I had to relearn how to write with my right hand. I was a righty. And whenever they would hand me a pen or something, I would just start writing with my left hand. And it was crazy because like my body did not want to write with its right hand. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I just want to, like, why can't I write with my left? And they were like, no, you have to write with your right because you have to relearn how to write. And it was such a like interesting process. I remember taking like an exam as well after, like, they want to know how your brain is, after week 1 or whatever, and week 3 and week 4. And it was like, I was taking these tests and I was like, what is it like? What are these questions? What am I even doing? Like I remember I had to take an IQ test and I felt so lost. I was like I knew who Albert Einstein was, but I had forgotten like what he had done. And it was a very weird time in my life, and I would say one of the most pivotal because a lot of people might look at it as like something bad that happened, but through my recovery, I was just forced to look at the positive side of things, and my mom was a big part of this. She was like, always look at them on the bright side, and what could the bright side be of this accident? And that kind of pushed me through. And eventually, I think like looking back, even after a year of that accident, I was like, wow, this was such a blessing in my life because it allowed me to kind of break out of whatever my current mental structure was. I was so focused on soccer. I was just that's all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was play sports and be good at them, and just, particularly soccer. And when I look back at it, I was like, after I was forced to join like chess and like dancing and like singing, and I started doing all these different things that I'd never imagined doing, but I was just like, I was forced to do it because I couldn't do physical activity, so I had to like put my brain and put my kind of activities and passions somewhere else. And I think down the line, it just really ended up teaching me about my brain and how my brain works and how to learn with my brain. Because I remember in college there was a time point where I was just sitting and I was like, I was memorizing everything in high school, but do I know how to learn, and how does that process even work? So it was like everything from speech and eating to like when I got to college, I was like thinking, like I was like becoming aware of like how how do people even learn? And it was such a I don't know, it was such a wild experience. But thank God, everything went well. I recovered super well. My doctors were amazing. I had amazing support. And really, I guess like the things that were left a little like sensitive or troubled were my speech. So I was like stuttering a lot when I woke up, and that kind of lasted in like, I don't know, a couple months after I was really having a hard time with my speech and my sleep. Basically, like my sleep was, I had to sleep 10 hours a day because my brain has to recover. And doctors were telling me like, hey, you have to make sure to take care of your sleep. You have to make sure to sleep 10 hours, make sure to go to bed early, all that stuff. And but again, I think those opportunities then led me to like obviously create a company on sleep. But yeah, looking back at it, like I truly look at it as like a blessing in my life. And maybe if I hadn't recovered or been like gotten fully recovered, maybe I would say that a little bit differently. But I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful for that. And I think that journey really taught me a lot about myself, about my family. Like I started, I don't know, like my parents were like, oh, you started being a lot nicer to your sisters when you like woke up and after this injury. And I was like, that's very interesting. So yeah, I would say, to sum it up, that I think that's one of the, if not the biggest thing that's happened in my life, and how it's shaped my life, just going through this head injury and surviving and recovering fully. Because I went back to this rehab center that I got like a scholarship from, and I was surrounded by people who had a similar injury, but they didn't recover fully like I did. And that was really kind of like hard to see, because I thought that I was like everyone else, like everyone else would also recover. But there's different levels of recovery. And it was really, really, yeah, it was just really, I guess, a powerful and touching moment to see other people in the same room as me, and just being like blessed with the full recovery, like being, I don't know, just recovering a lot better than other people did. And I don't know, I think that was also really just affected me, and how thankful and how blessed I was to be where I am right now. So yeah.
You've been on a longboard since then?
Yeah, only a couple times. I think I've stood on it, but never really rode it. I mean, after, like, it was crazy. I had forgotten everything when I woke up from my injury. So I was on Amazon, like purchasing new wheels, like purchasing new bearings for my longboard, all this. And my dad was like really getting mad at me. He was like, "What are you doing? Why are you going back to the thing that almost like killed you basically?" But I had like no like my memory it like kind of in the time span of this injury, I don't know, to like protect my brain or protect me from like, all the thoughts or like the actual scene of what happened. And so yeah, I started buying like I remember the first day I got back from the hospital, I like redid the sandpaper on my longboard, and I was like I had I had no like regrets or anything about like the injury, and I couldn't even internalize it or process it. And so I was like, there's nothing wrong. I'm going to continue longboarding. And then I guess once I did do that, and like I kind of started to become more sober and more human and more like adult, like I was like, whoa, yes, maybe I won't maybe I won't do this, or maybe I'll like at least wear a helmet the next time I step on one. And the first time I actually like realized, or like I had some sort of body reaction, was when I went skiing, because I'm a big skier. I've been skiing since I was 5, and I have a helmet on and everything at this point. But just going down the hill super fast, my body was like, I was feeling something different, and it was saying like, I don't know, like slow down maybe. So that's really the only reaction I've ever gotten from like body reaction from the injury that has stayed. But other than that, like no memory of it, no really, yeah, I guess except for what my friends and parents have told me.
Yeah, somatic bodily memory. But what about
Hmm.
mentally and emotionally? How did all this stuff affect you, like mentally and emotionally? It sounds like you forgot about a lot of it, but any lingering anxiety, fears, like anything like that?
I wouldn't say directly from the the injury. I don't know. I think I for a while I had a huge fear of like public speaking, and just like anxiety, and I feel like I definitely got some sort of anxiety from it. But I guess, when we grow up, like public speaking is a fear that we have in school, and maybe I had gotten over that in school already, but then the injury kind of reset me, and it was really like a reset. And yeah, I mean, I definitely have like I feel like some anxiety now, some ADHD, but I feel like I've always had those things. So I wouldn't say anything that really points back to the injury itself. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
Yeah, no worries.
As a founder, what are you currently working through? ADHD and anxiety, or is there anything else that's on the founder journey? There's always ups and downs. So what process are you
There's
in the middle
always,
of?
yeah, there's always ups and downs. I feel like I'm become super aware of like my ADHD and like doing things, and especially with, like as a growing startup, you have so many things that start piling on as like tasks and tasks, and you have an endless list of tasks to do essentially. And at this point, I'm like, some days I'm like, shoot, like I have unlimited tasks to do. Which one do I do? What do I start on? And there's like no, like, I struggle to have like that initial, like, okay, let's just do it. And obviously I do it, and I go to the gym and change my state of mind and get in a better state of mind to do that. But I think that's what like I have become aware of most. And like maybe all these tasks and just managing a company has brought it out more in me versus like, if I have 3 tasks to do all day, I can manage them easily, no problems, and I can do them perfectly. But when there's like 20 or like 50 or like, 100, then you have to have maybe some sort of systems to even like to manage that, and to think about it, and to get yourself to do the most important thing. So I've always been into like prioritizing, like making to-do lists and prioritizing those. I think that really helps me. And yeah, I mean, there's always, I guess, anxiety, like you said, ups and downs. Like one day, I'm super grateful to be a CEO, to be a founder, to be in this position, to be have a team and lead people on a common vision. And a day later, you can be like, oh shoot, we have to buy new inventory, and there's no cash in the bank. Where do we get this? Let's think fast. And it's like, yeah, it's like an up and down. And I think it's just about managing that, taking care of your mental health, whether it's meditation, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's going on walks, runs, not necessarily like, being all about it, but not necessarily, because I think if you like tire, it's also important to not like tie your identity with what you're building and what your company is. Obviously, there can be some different opinions on that, but it's like, it's a balance. I think if you're too into something, and, you put all your identity and all your success on it, and if it can fail, or you have one small failure, well then you take that too personally. So I think it's like a balance of detachment, but also just being grateful for having the opportunity to work on something like this and make a lot more impact than you would working for someone else or a regular job. I think I've always wanted to create big impact and do it in a creative way. And I think this kind of all aligned for me, my experience and learning about sleep, and then diving deeper into sleep. I think everything is like much very nicely come together, and I'm just super grateful to be in this position. So yeah, it's a balance of that, letting go, but also being super grateful and just in the moment and enjoying it as much as you can.
What did you do before starting your company? Like, how did you get to just before starting the company?
I was in college, and I was a computer engineer, or that's what at least I went in as a computer engineer, and I wanted to really just work with computers. I love computers. I worked in IT. I worked for the college IT group for the help desk, just kind of around computers all the time. And then eventually, like in the middle of my college career, I was like, I wanted to try something else, and I got pulled into all these business case competitions, and these case competitions really were like super exciting for me, and I was prioritizing them over my homework. And I remember like we were even traveling. We won the PwC champion consulting case competition, and then we won the Deloitte one. We got
Wow.
sent to Westlake, Texas. It was really, yeah, it was really a good time. It was like freshman sophomore year. I remember just like made a small little team, and we were like really good at this. And I was like the engineer of the team, while everyone else was like the business people. And I think I was like transitioning more so into business. And then I started taking a lot of entrepreneurship classes. Professors were like, basically, hey, make an idea and just go with it, and just kind of just go for it. And that's all it was. Like that's how Tabo started. It started in a classroom with a bunch of slideshows, and then after the class ended, they're like, hey, you can enter this competition, or you can enter this the school program to develop your startup further. And it kind of was like one thing led to another, and eventually I was faced with the decision, like, stay in school or continue building the company. And like I was in my last semester of school. This was COVID time, so everything was kind of like up and down, up in the air, like, are we gonna have class or not? And then I just decided to go full time on the company and drop out of school my last semester, just because I was like, you know what, even if I do get this degree, like I will just want to work on this anyways. And I was like, since I transferred majors from computer engineering to like a more business, I had to take some of these like freshman classes that were just required. And it was so annoying to do that rather than what I wanted to do. And I don't know, everyone has different paths. A lot of people have told me, hey, you should have finished, your last semester. And I had a lot of friends who did finish school and also then created companies. But I was like, you know what? It was just like a sign for me. I couldn't handle the stress of both. And my brain was just working on overload. And I was like, you know what? I can always come back to this and finish that last semester. I'm just going to do what's working right now and continue to like follow into those open doors that are opening for me. So that's
Where'd
really
you
what
learn
I
to do
did.
that? Not everybody would just say, but let me just follow the path, like, and just drop out of school. Not everyone's brave enough or courageous enough to do that. Like, where'd you learn to do that? Who'd you learn that from?
Yeah, I don't know where I necessarily learned that from. My mom always told me I was very persistent when I was a kid. The persistence, even from when I was like 7, 8 years old, that persistence just stayed with me. Whatever little thing it was, like a sleepover with a friend, like I was persistent about it. So I don't know necessarily if I learned, like if who or where I learned it from, but I've always been super persistent, and I've always liked the challenge, and I've always loved to, I don't know, kind of. I'm a person who gets like bored easily, and so I always want to do something new. And at that point, I think maybe school was just getting a little bit boring, and I was really, really working on something interesting. And I saw some of these like first wins, like sleep doctor, talking to us and being like, "Hey, this is really cool what you guys are doing." And so I think like the combination of that, and the fact that it was COVID, like if it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have just finished. But everything was so up in the air. Like we had online class, and these online classes, we weren't really learning anything, or at least I don't know. I thought I wasn't. I think all that combined led me to say, hey, like weigh my odds. Like, yeah, I could come back and finish the last semester if I wanted to, but this is going really well and I want to work on this anyway after I leave school, so might as well just try it.
Makes sense. All right, let's move into claim to fame. I'd love to hear a little bit more about this. You want to kick us off, Chloe?
Yeah. Tell us what Tavo is and why we should care in 60 seconds. We're not going to time you, but.
Okay. Tabo is a wearable alarm clock that wakes you up silently and in your lightest stage of sleep. And you should care about this, or rather, we care about this because alarm clocks we see them as fundamentally outdated. We've been waking up, they've been forcing us awake for thousands of years, starting with 3,000 years ago, and then in the 1200s, like window knockers. We've always been forced awake. And so with the new technology coming out, with new sleep science, we know that we sleep in cycles. We know a little bit more about sleep, and we know that we sleep in cycles, and that there is a good time to wake up, and that is called light sleep. It's what stage you wake up when you don't use an alarm clock. And when we use an alarm clock, sometimes it can cut us off in these sleep cycles, wake us up in deep sleep or in our dream sleep, and our brain doesn't actually get to finish a whole sleep cycle, which is really important because a lot of brain processes happen during these sleep cycles. So memory formation, memory consolidation. That's why the doctors told me I had to sleep a lot. And when we cut off these cycles and we get ripped out of our deep sleep, we feel the sleep inertia, which is just like your want to keep sleeping. And I'm sure a lot of you, or Chloe, Cody, if you guys use an alarm clock, you've felt this way. When an alarm clock wakes you up, you can feel very tired, or 5 minutes before your alarm, if you wake up, sometimes you're even more wide awake than the alarm wakes you up. So we fundamentally, understand that alarm clocks are outdated, and all we're trying to do is build an alarm clock that works with the human body a little bit more. And so our alarm clock wakes you up within a time window rather than a set time. So rather than 8 a.m., it'll look between 7 and 8 a.m. And if it recognizes that you're in a lighter sleep stage, it's going to vibrate and wake you up. And that's really the premise of the device. I think this then makes it so that an alarm clock doesn't force you out of your sleep. It doesn't fundamentally disrupt your sleep and cut off your sleep cycle. It actually allows you to maximize the benefits of your sleep, and essentially turns the alarm clock into something that works with you, not against you.
This is interesting because it's actually at the core of why a lot of people wake up feeling like they have the flu after a nap, because they often get past the initial stage of sleep and into slow wave, deeper sleep. And their brain there's inflammatory cytokines that are coming in to clean things out. Adenosine levels are increased. All these things happen, and then they wake up because they slept for 30 minutes or 45 minutes instead of like a 15, 20-minute nap, and they feel like crap after. So it's really interesting that you're playing on that concept with this.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because we also have a power nap feature and a long nap feature.
Nice.
And we literally don't let people sleep from 20 minutes to I think it's 70 minutes. So basically we only let them take a power nap from 1 to 20 minutes. Or if they really want to take a long nap, well, then we let them sleep the full sleep cycle. And so we try to cut people off from entering that deeper wave of sleep. The science term, I think, what happens on a scientific level is that your brain goes from NREM 1 to NREM 2. So it moves one sleep stage, and that sleep stage, your waves start to balance out a little more. And that's when you wake up from a 15-minute nap, you will feel more rejuvenated and more refreshed than even if you were to have a coffee, because your system is literally going through a soft reset. That is one of my favorite things. Also called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. Yeah, I think that's so cool. How sleep works like that, and just the fact that we know more about sleep in today's day and age than we did, 100 years ago, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I wish more people knew about sleep and its benefits and things like that. I feel like in my work as a trauma therapist, the first question I ask someone who's struggling with anxiety or depression is, how's your sleep? And they're like, what are you, my PE teacher? And it's like, bro, come on. Your body needs to recover. How is your mindset around sleep, and as a founder, because founders tend to be grind mode, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like, how has your mindset as a founder around sleep changed as you've learned more about this and started this company?
Yeah, we're definitely coming from a sleep when you're dead kind of mentality, societal wise, but I think it's shifting. It's definitely, a lot of wellness devices and people realizing that sleep is more or less key. And if you don't get good sleep, you're gonna suffer. So yeah, I mean, for me, 100%, it's shifted from like how little I can sleep, and even the origins of making an alarm clock and trying to wake up at the right stage of sleep. That was like more so trying to minimize sleep. But then obviously as I grew as a founder and as an entrepreneur, business owner, adult, you realize that sleep is very important. And I actually did like an experiment where I slept 9 hours every single day for a month, and my mood, my everything had completely changed. It was like I didn't know what anxiety even meant. I couldn't even grasp what anxiety was. It was the coolest thing ever. And then somehow I just got back into like not sleeping, not like, sleeping 9 hours every day. I think is a luxury, especially for someone like an entrepreneur or a business owner, because like you said, I mean, even if you want to do that, it's like there's so many things that pile up that you're like almost balancing, like, do I go to sleep now or do I work? But I think Tabo works really well for me in this case because I can sleep 7.5 hours and wake up in the right stage and feel good in the morning, or even 6 hours. And I've definitely learned like a lot more about my sleep. So like I can't sleep 6 hours. Like we get used to sleeping 5 or 6 hours, I guess, if we sleep 5 or 6 hours for a long time. But just because we're used to it doesn't mean that our body necessarily is okay with that. And so I've learned that I can sleep six hours, maybe one, maybe 2 nights in a row. But after that, my body just starts declining and I have to get 7.5 hours. And then as a reset, I do like a 9 hour. So on the weekends, I definitely sleep 9 hours. And I've at least noticed that. And something that our alarm like does, I think fundamentally, is right now how people look at alarms, or how they look at waking up is like, oh, I have to be up at 8 tomorrow. Let me set my alarm for 8 tomorrow. So I'll wake up at 8 tomorrow, regardless of what time I go to bed. And our alarm is more so trying to teach people and to look at how they set their alarm a little bit differently. So instead of saying I'm going to wake up at 8 tomorrow, I need to sleep 7.5 hours today or tomorrow, and that means I have to I'll be waking up somewhere around here, and that means I'll be going to bed around 12 or whatever. And so that's how we, at least in the app and the user experience, that's how we kind of frame it, and how people are now setting their alarm. They're looking at their sleep time. They're looking at when they're going to wake up, when they're going to kind of go to bed, and their sleep cycles and how that aligns. And I think that's like one really cool thing that the alarm does, and just the concept of not trying to go against your sleep but work with it, is like looking at what your sleep time is rather than when you're actually waking up. So I think it going back to the question, how has that changed me? I center my days, like my days almost start with my rest. If I get a good night of sleep, I know, and I wake up well, I know it's going to be a great day. And it's, I can maximize that, versus like if I'm getting 4.5 hours of sleep, well, that I kind of know that, like, okay, maybe I'll have to, maybe not work out, maybe just take a walk. So I very much like center myself, and I look at it as the core of my day, because, if you don't rest well, how are you supposed to perform well? And that's kind of like my motto. So I'm always looking out for my sleep. I'm always trying to make sure I'm aware of how many hours I'm getting, and because I just know how much that affects my day.
That's beautiful. All right, $1 million question here. If I'm already using a Whoop, so why would I use Tavo instead?
Mm-hmm. So Whoop is, I guess it's a kind of a different market. Whoop is a personal trainer on the wrist that looks at your strain, that looks at how much you're working out, and helps you then determine a time to wake up and determine a sleep time. So it's very much like data backed, and like using your body's data, but I would say more of a personal trainer on the wrist. Tabo, what it is, it's like what we're doing is fundamentally just innovating the alarm clock. So yeah, someone who has a Whoop, or someone who has maybe like I don't know, like an Aura ring. Well, those things are for more so tracking your data, tracking your HR, and and your blood content and your activity. What Tabo is just, it's meant to come in and replace whatever you're using as an alarm clock and just replace that. So whether it's your phone, whether it is something like a Whoop, because I know not all of these devices have like a smart alarm clock and, they just kind of vibrate at whatever time you set it at. Tabo is trying to come in and replace people's phone alarm clocks. Maybe someone has an Apple Watch and they don't want the EMF overnight. They don't want the bright screen in their face or lighting up at night. Well, then they just, can charge that at night and put on the Tavo, which is a soft, comfortable wearable that's made to sleep with, and not something like, a hard watch that is going to be, maybe you can like scratch yourself with it or it can be uncomfortable at night. So fundamentally, I think we're just trying to very like take our own path in innovating the alarm clock and not really trying to be like a sleep tracker or crazy, provide you with crazy data. And I don't know how that evolves in the future. Maybe it is just like a device that is totally focused on your wake up, totally focused on your sleep. Obviously, like things like sleep tracking and, we can always incorporate those things. But I think there's something just about innovating one piece of technology and specifically the alarm clock, because that's what we see as outdated. And I think we're trying to teach more so people, like I said, a different way of looking at sleep, not necessarily just being like, hey, we want to set an alarm for 8 a.m. and let's wake up to that. But no, let's look at how long we're sleeping. Let's actually give some respect to the sleep in a way and be conscious of it, at least like be sleep conscious. So I don't know if that directly answers your question. But yeah, I would say we're definitely trying to carve our own path into just innovating the alarm clock and making it something so that when you just put on an alarm clock, it basically knows when your best time is to wake up, based on your sleep cycles, based on the sleep time that you had. And so the idea really is a smart alarm clock that is so accurate that it just knows when your best time is to wake up and when you'll feel the best. Like I can compare it to Tesla, and like Tesla's trying to been trying to do the self-driving for a while. Like when Tesla first came out, that was their vision and that's what they were going for. And now we're seeing like the full self-driving fully, in all the cities. And so that's, I would say, kind of on the trajectory we're on. Like we are after this vision of like a full self-driving alarm clock that works with your body completely rather than against it.
What's the technology behind it? Like, how does it know when to wake you up?
Yeah, it's very simple actually. It looks at movement, and we have an algorithm that basically can tell us when you're in your light sleep and when you're not in your light sleep. And so we look, movement, I guess, is up to 85-90% accurate. Like that's the main thing that goes into sleep stage tracking. There's HR and there's like blood levels as well. But that's only to make it just a little bit more accurate, like, add a couple more points of degree. But the primary thing is movement. So we're looking at movement and we're looking at the last, say, hour of your movement. And, because in the last hour, because in that hour, we're going through REM and we're going through light sleep. We might still be in deep sleep if we had a short night of sleep, but primarily we're kind of alternating through REM and light sleep. And so as soon as that device recognizes that you're in your light sleep, within your wake up window, that's when it would essentially vibrate to let you know that you're already awake, that you're transitioning in between REM stage and light sleep. And, with this technology, I think we're at like a good start, but obviously like with AI, with machine learning, all that can just get super, super accurate. And over time, get it personalized to where your movements, Chloe, might be different from Cody's movements, whether someone's moving a lot at night or just, micro movements. But the point is that everyone moves at night. And when we look at thousands of sleep graphs, we can correlate light sleep to movement. And, and that's what we're primarily looking at. But I think the future of it is to really, really go deep and to work on the personalization aspect of it and to kind of move more into the automatic self-driving alarm clock kind of.
Is that the bet that you're kind of taking as well? Like what was the calculus that you did when looking, like I have to imagine you did a competitor analysis before you started this company and you saw that Whoop has silent alarm, Garmin has silent alarm, like some of these things do some of this stuff. but you still chose to go in on it.
Mhm.
Why? What's the secret sauce or the secret thing that you don't, that you know that they don't?
Yeah. Well, I think 10 years from now, I think alarm clocks will be very different. I think alarm clocks will be more so waking you up with your sleep cycle. Like, why in the heck, in 15 years from now, when we know that there's a right time to wake up, why would we still be disrupting our sleep mid-sleep cycle and forcing ourselves awake like cavemen? You think of like a futuristic scientific world. Like, of course, we're going to have something that knows exactly when the best time is for us to wake up. We feel amazing, and we don't cut off any sleep cycles. That's the bet on sleep that I'm taking, that Tavo's taking, is that there's a lot more. And I guess to your point of like Whoop and Apple Watch existing, yeah, those things exist. And Fitbit was a big thing like 5 years ago when we were even starting this. But like, I guess the point of Tabo is the alarms and the sleep is the core. It's what it's built upon, versus Fitbit. It's maybe built on like the sleep tracking and the fitness tracking and the activity like tracking. So then we saw as like the lights, like the alarm stuff and the sleep stuff kind of getting lost, and people not even getting a Fitbit or a Apple Watch for the sleep aspects. Now it's different. Now there's a lot more sleep, and Whoop is a lot more on sleep, and Aura. But back then, like 5 years ago, it was like it's just the feature. It's not like anything major. It's not the main purpose of this device. And sleep being such a foundational thing, being like one of the core pillars of health. There's sleep, nutrition, and wellness, or working out. Sleep is like the foundation of that. And it was just interesting to me. There was no wearables that are completely focused on sleep, and more so completely focused on waking you up at the right time. Based on my knowledge, at that point, there was only a couple apps that did that would listen to your sleep and try to wake you up in your lightest stage of sleep. That was really the only technology out there that did that. But when I was kind of demoing it with my friends and showing them, like, look at this app, like that it can do this, it can wake you up in your light sleep. It's like magic. It just didn't work for them. And I think that was because the apps, they use like a microphone, and there's a lot of other noises in the room that can happen, the fan on, your roommates or whatever. So it just didn't really work for them. And I saw something that really worked well for me. I was like, how could we improve on this? And it was putting it on a wearable and essentially tracking, having it be a little bit more accurate rather than a microphone. So all those things, I think. And even now, like 5 years ago when I started this in college, we didn't see any Apple Sleep Health, things like that. We didn't really even see the Oura Ring. Things were just starting off, and like people were even asking me, like, why are you starting a company based on like sleep? Like, why is that the foundation? Like, what is this all about? And I was like, yeah, it's like sleep is important. And now, like, to see Aura, Apple Watch, Whoop all focusing on sleep. I'm talking to Whoop users, and they're like, yeah, I pretty much like only use it for the sleep tracking feature, and I love it. We're seeing so much more of that, and it's so much like conviction for us that we're building something that matters. We're building something that people care about. We're building something that is valuable. So yeah, I would say that's the bet we took.
Who would you consider your ideal client then? Because if it's not quite an Apple Watch or a Whoop user, but it's also not someone who doesn't care about their sleep, like what's like the niche that you would say that you occupy?
Yeah, so we sell to a lot of our customers are, well, primarily generally they're 25 through 35, working, studying. They care about their health, they care about their sleep. So you could even like rope other wearables into this, but for us, it's mainly people who use and rely on alarm clocks. Whether that's nurses, whether that's surgeons, whether that's legal professionals who wake up really early, teachers, people who rely on alarm clock to wake up, and it's their, it's very much part of their morning, and not even part of their morning, but like some of these surgeons and doctors and nurses, they wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Not really natural to wake up when it's still dark and your body should be sleeping. So this type of alarm, the fact that we have can wake you up in light sleep, is really helpful for these people who wake up in the middle of the night. So we've had a pretty big breakthrough with nurses, surgeons, doctors, just because of that. And then really, like I said, anyone who cares more so about optimizing their sleep, waking up at the right time, entrepreneur, business owners, people who wake up at 3, 4 a.m. to work out. At least that's what we've seen and the feedback we've gotten from our users. So, and there's definitely also Apple users with an Apple Watch who have gotten a Tavo and, like I said, use that at night while they charge their Apple Watch, just because they don't want a screen, they don't want to have a bulky thing on their wrist, they don't want to have the EMFs coming from it, and various other reasons. So we're just like a detachment from technology. You put on your Tabo. When you set your alarm, you don't have to have your phone connected or nearby. So it even allows for that. Like, I know, Chloe, you talk about waking up and not looking directly at your phone and not, like kind of like confusing your brain or having it start to react immediately. Well, our device lets you do that. And that's also, it could be, I think it even has a bigger play in the future where we're so like constantly looking at our phones all the time. And I think maybe we're in the future, we're going to start doing, Chloe, more so of what you said of like waking up and not necessarily checking our phones in the morning. So that's another cool feature of it. But
that's an interesting or little piece there, is the getting away from your phone in the morning, which is some of this. I don't sleep with an alarm at all. I wake up whenever I wake up. So I just, I don't think about some of this stuff, but I would have to imagine someone going to turn off their alarm is a super easy segue into, oh, look at my notifications. Like, so this could be an interesting thing.
I would say that's my favorite piece of the device. So I have one and I really like it. And that's probably like, I mean, obviously like it waking you up at the appropriate time is a really good feature, but I love that I don't have to go to my phone and click alarm off or click snooze, because that is, if I see notifications on there that I'm like, oh, I need to dive into that. Or even like with an Apple Watch, right? Like if you're pressing snooze or something, you're exposing your eyes to that blue light right away.
Yeah, that's really cool. Cody, how long do you typically sleep? Are you like a light sleeper or are you a deep sleeper? What is your sleep like? I'm just curious.
Generally a really deep sleeper. I'm somewhere between 7.5 hours during the week and 7.5, 8-ish, sometimes 9, not usually 9 on the weekends. But I'm crash to sleep and I stay asleep primarily. There's some nights where my mind just I work too late and I don't get into my night routine like efficiently enough, and I work through some of my night routine, which is just not good. I did that 2 nights ago and I hated my life the next day. And then my brain is going, like, I'm sure, like you just sit there and you have 300 tasks like you're describing. You're like, did I do enough today? And then what do I have to do tomorrow? And so that's the getting into sleep sometimes the challenge, but then I just let my body sleep until it needs to wake up. And not everyone can do that. Like I get it. Not everyone can do that, but like the doctors and nurses you're describing, but I'm able to.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think you touched on a great thing, is like the night routine, and how important that could be for your brain to like signal to you that it's time to go to bed. Like if you don't have that, like when I didn't have a night routine, it was, it's like kind of like random. But when you have something like a night routine, you signal to your body that, look, it's time to go to bed, and you can start winding down, and you're not stuck, in those nights where you're working up until 12 a.m. and then you're like, shoot, did I do enough? Your brain is telling you no, because it's in this momentum. I think that's, What does your night routine look like? Just curious. Is it like a 5-minute thing, or is it like a 30-minute thing?
Mine's a little bit more of like a process. I have a end-of-day review that I do. So I brain dump all the things, plan out my organized tomorrow today. What are the 3 most important things I got to get done? And what's the number one thing that I have to accomplish tomorrow for it to be successful, and kind of plan that out for the next day. Generally, I'll start my first task in some way. If I have to write a blog, I'll write the first sentence. If I have to write a piece of content, I'll write the first piece of the script, whatever it is. Then I move into like a review or journal of like, how did I do today? How's my mind? How's my brain? How was my exercise? How was my social connection? Did I play? Like those types of things. What's one thing I could do better tomorrow, and some gratitude. And then I'll move into some type of like mobility, like stretching, like things like that, HRV and stretching, where I'm doing like breath work and like stretching and stuff. And then something to like let my brain relax, whether I'm like reading, listening to a podcast, watching a show or a movie. I love movies. And then I go to bed, like I get into bed, turn all the lights down during like while I'm watching a show or anything like that. And then I'll get into bed, read for a little bit, no light reading. And then by that time I pass out. Oh, and I take, at like 7:30, I start drinking mood magnesium from prepare your mind. Freaking love them. It has like all three of the magnesiums you need, not just one of them, plus L-theanine and B6 and glycine.
Yeah.
Pass out when I drink those. I drink that, and that's part of my routine.
Uh-huh. That's really cool. That's really in depth. I love that. Yeah.
It does help. You're right. I start to get tired. I start to yawn, like all the stuff. It really trains your brain well. Like
Hmm.
I love it.
And the thing you say about like planning out your next day, we even have something kind of like that where it's like you're literally planning out like your next day's to-do list, like 3 or 5 things, whatever it is. You have a little notes section, and then you have like a morning routine of like exactly what you're gonna do when you wake up, like kind of utilizing that creative like energy you have at night when you're more like, I don't know, I guess less anxious, or you've had a lot of thoughts throughout the day, utilizing that, and then like preparing yourself for next morning, when you, I don't know, when you wake up and you're kind of more so task oriented to make sure you have something to do. Like I say, we have that, but it's just like a journal that we've advertised, or that we've at least communicated the idea about. But I think, I think all of that like plays into good sleep and a good morning the next day. And it sounds like you're like dialed in like that. That's awesome to hear.
Appreciate it. Took me a long time, but I really care. I mean, I studied the brain, and I had
Hmm.
4 concussions in college as well, so not quite as bad as you, but repeated brain trauma. So sleep has been important to me as well.
Yeah. Wow,
So
that's really impressive. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, for sure. The next thing I would love is like let's dive into the lab here a little bit. You guys don't make any radical claims necessarily on your website or anything like that, which is honestly a breath of fresh air because I feel like sometimes people try to stretch science further than it should be. But what is the
Yeah.
research? Is there any research that this product is based on, or is there research that backs like your guys' algorithm, or like talk to us about some of the science?
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess I mentioned a couple, a couple just looking at like the studies and sleep and sleep studies specifically, and looking at, when movement happens and when it happens during light sleep. How does that look in terms of your movement and accelerometer? So we've looked at countless studies. We've used rings that are for sleep apnea to also take studies of our own, and measure how we're sleeping, how we're waking up, when we're waking up. So we've done plenty of those. We haven't done any clinical trials, or like, I guess, official like clinical studies, just because those are expensive, and I don't think we're the advice, at least around that, was like, you don't need to spend like 500,000 on a clinical study just yet. Like, save that for, when you actually need it. And so it was like more so get it, just get really good user feedback and user testimonials. And I'd say like the ways that we know it works is that, first of all, we're completely based in science. There's a right time to wake up, and we know when that right time to wake up is, and we know more or less how to detect it through movement. That can always get better, but like I said, yeah, we're working on that, and it can always get things can always get better with anything. And then I'd say, from people that were using, like the doctors that go back and buy our device, the people that come back and buy a second one. We've had countless emails of people being like, one specific one at least, where someone was like, hey, I ordered another Tabo because mine stopped working, and I cannot imagine myself going back to a regular alarm. Like, I use this device every day, and so I'm wondering if I can get the broken one replaced, or at least, exchanged. So we've gotten a bunch of those emails, and people using the Tabo and then going back to an alarm and being like, was this really worth it? Was this really good? And then going back to alarm and being like, yeah, like this is definitely something different. So the science is, like, I'd say we're backed in science. It's definitely not, not perfect, but we're at least grasping onto something that is like, all right, we're gonna try to wake you up in your lightest stage of sleep. How do we detect that? We found a novel way to do that, just through movement, not necessarily like tracking the whole nights of sleep and going and then like from this pattern detecting a light sleep, but rather just looking at your last hour or last hour and a half of sleep, and kind of working backwards to detect when you're either in your light sleep or not. That, like, we're also like, yeah, we're taking this unique approach. But yeah, I mean, I'd say more so our research and our basis comes from our users right now, from the fact that people are, you know, giving us amazing reviews, buying second ones, telling us that this device has completely changed their life. Like, I mean, those things aren't, you can't really say, those are things that just people say, because I think those are real, real feedback. And I think we'll get to the clinical studies. We'll get to the, we've done some of our own like ring trials where we test it with a ring, and we have some sleep lab connections that we can, that we're continuing to work with, and getting more sleep studies from, and then eventually validating it there. But yeah, there's plenty of science and science peer-reviewed journals that are talking about waking up in light sleep, and how that's the natural time that people wake up. So yeah, I'm very confident that as long as we keep it based in science, and we look at the actual like data, and continue to do like studies with these rings, that we'll get to a point where, and now with AI, like it's crazy, like something it could really accelerate things with development, and like trying to get towards this Tesla of alarm clocks. So
Be really interesting that one of the biggest indicators of depression or anxiety is your sleep wake cycle, like is messed up and looks really, really weird. And one of the things to do is like retraining that sleep cycle. It'd be really interesting if the alarm could in some way slowly start to shift someone into a healthier sleep wake cycle, where they are waking up in light sleep as opposed to deep sleep or REM or whatever.
100%.
Be
Yeah.
interesting.
And we have a very good example of that. Like one of our first users, Olaf, he got the device like 4 years ago, and now like just his, like he was in college, he was waking up in the middle of the night, he was going to bed at a crazy time, like he had struggling waking up. Now like 4 or 5 years later, he's a real estate agent. He got a Tabo for optimizing his sleep cycle, and he just constantly tells us how much he loves it and how much it's changed his life. And now I think this was like a couple months ago, he was like, I forgot my Tabo at my parents' house, whatever, like for a week, and I didn't have it. And I was like, how am I gonna wake up? Like, what is gonna happen? And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to set an alarm, because I'm not going back to that. He's like, I'm going to try to wake up naturally. And the whole week, he was able to wake up naturally by himself right before like his scheduled time. And I'd say like Olaf, we've taken literally from someone who has a crazy sleep schedule, crazy circadian rhythm. We've trained his body over time, over these 3 years, to wake him up in his light sleep, and then his body to come in and recognize that he's being woken up in light sleep. And now he's someone who, if he wants to, he doesn't necessarily have to use it, and he can wake up in his like light sleep according to his circadian rhythm. And he goes to bed now at like, super early. Like he's so much more sleep aware and so much more sleep conscious. And I'm like, wow, this is really, really cool. So in our website, one of our things is like, over time, we train you to wake up in your light sleep, to wake up feeling better. And so, it might not be instant, because sleep is such a hard habit that we have. However, we've been doing it for so many years, that's how we're going to continue doing it. But over time, little by little, 10% each day, you can get to a place where you didn't have a sleep cycle before, it was kind of messed up, to waking up naturally by yourself. So yeah, seeing that has been really, really cool.
Damn, that's an amazing case study, and it is possible. I didn't even know about you guys. I did it like where I've trained my cycle that same way. Having a tool like that for someone who maybe hasn't studied the brain and know all the stuff, like, would be so freaking helpful. Go Olaf.
Yeah, let's go. And actually, so we've been getting a couple like messages or emails that Chloe are like, hey, my son like has ADHD, and his doctor recommended a vibrating alarm clock for him. And like, we're reaching out to see if, you guys are FSA, like if we could buy this with FSA or HSA credits, whatever that is, like the technical term. But it's interesting that like doctors are recommending a vibrating alarm for people who do have ADHD, and that's been just something recently. And I recently went on, like not recently, but 6 months ago, I went on a podcast with some naturopathic doctors, and we were talking through the device and how it's just like more so, works with your body again rather than against it. And then they also purchased the device, and now they are recommending this like I guess alarm clock, this natural alarm clock for their patients. So it's super cool to like see that and see that it's working for doctors, but then also like to see these doctors recommending it, and then also to get random emails saying like, "Hey, my doctor recommended like a vibrating alarm clock, and now we're reaching out to you guys." So that's been really cool. And I don't know, maybe you like I did a little search of why vibrating alarm clocks are good for ADHD, but maybe you could explain that in your own words to me,
Yeah.
because like that's super interesting that we're getting those.
Yeah, I would say that ADHD and a dysregulated circadian rhythm go hand in hand. Like a lot of ADHD people also too have delayed chronotypes, so we have a really tough time waking up in the morning as is. And
Mm,
so I think that like a style of alarm clock, vibrating alarm clock, is really helpful. And I would say the other piece too is if you have ADHD and you're grabbing your phone the first thing in the morning, you're farther disrupting your circadian rhythm and then disrupting your dopamine system because you're going to see your phone right away. And like most people don't have the willpower to not check it. And then as soon as you get that dopamine hit, your brain's going to crave more and you're just priming your brain to be distracted all day. It's just this vicious cycle.
yeah, that's what that
Dude,
was the one point it was saying on ChatGPT.
people don't realize that the first type of dopamine you give yourself in the morning, your brain is primed for the rest of the day. It resets at overnight or
Mm-hmm.
whatever because of the way your brain clears out goes to your ventricles and stuff. But
Hmm.
that first hit of
Bingo.
dopamine you get is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, percent. Like we've no, I mean, I can tell, like, I can think back to the days where, like, you open your phone and it's like an email and you're responding to that email right away and you're like, your
Mm-hmm.
brain's all, and then you get up from bed and you're like, what just, is this the morning or is this the middle of the day? Your brain kind of doesn't even
Yep.
know. Like, like, that's so true.
Yeah. I mean, then
And
there's science behind it
like
too.
we're also wasting these like
Yeah, yeah, I do remember listening to that, the theta states. Like you're waking up in this almost like newness, this bliss, and this new morning, and then boom, you're sucked right into like the matrix, whatever it is,
totally.
on your phone. And there was another point about like ADHD. If you have ADHD, like you ignore like alarms, you can ignore like audio alarms, or they can just become like constant, and you can just your brain can just kind of shield them out, which is, I feel like a problem with a lot of people who use alarms who don't have their sleep and night routines as dialed in as Cody does. They set 10 alarms and they try to wake up to one of them and they end up ignoring.
Freaking Chloe, dude.
Not
You,
anymore, not
Yeah.
anymore.
she's called
Chloe's
out.
Yeah.
on a better
She's called
Yeah.
path.
out. The
Oh
number
my
of
gosh, like
times
I
we've tried to
had to put
work
my
with your
phone in
like
like different. Oh my gosh, I had to put my phone in like I've tried everything, like putting my phone in different rooms, like down the stairs. But then I don't hear, but my partner hears it. And he's like, get up and get. But you guys, like I slept through an earthquake. What is it? Stage 5 earthquake. Like that's how like
Yeah,
sometimes ADHD brains can just sleep through everything.
yeah. What I'm wondering, like in college, my roommate had an alarm clock that like I think it was like a bath mat, and you had to like get out of bed and step on it for it to actually like turn off. Like it was such a cool concept. But then at the end of the day, I don't think he ever actually like got up out of bed and like stood on this mat. Or maybe when he did, he would just go back to bed. But there's like so many different types of alarm clocks. I'm wondering like what has worked for you well and what hasn't. Like because there's light alarms out there too, like the ones that wake you up with light. There's many different types, and then
Mhm.
there's like these bath mats, or like these crazy ways that they still force you awake, but then they try to get you to do a puzzle or something. I wonder if any of those have worked for you or not.
Oh my gosh, I would love to try that because so I think what has worked for me in the past has definitely been keeping my phone in the room. Like I had a rule, especially when I was in a 9 to 5 and I actually had to like be up. Now I can be a little bit more lenient with my schedule, but I would literally like put my phone downstairs in the kitchen and then I would force myself to like put the tea kettle on and make a cup of tea. So most days that worked. There's literally some days that I would run up and down the stairs, you guys, like 6 or 7 times and press snooze. Just go down. So it wasn't the most effective. I would say 60% efficacy. My poor partner.
I could imagine the
And
morning after that, six time running up and down the stairs. You
soon,
get up, you probably think your body's more exhausted than if you were
yeah,
to not even sleep.
I'd clock like 1,000 just before I got out of bed. um, yeah, oh, I think I really like the sunrise simulator locks, alarm clocks. I find those really helpful,
Mm-hmm.
especially just in the dead of winter when it's like, everyone knows sleeping in darkness is so helpful, but then the hardest part is like becoming awake in the darkness. So using the sunrise simulator alarm clock, really like having, the vibrating wristwatch, that's really helpful. And then the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I do after that is I have a light therapy lamp. And I start my day with that. I have like a tea and I sit in front of that light therapy lamp, and then that's kind of my process. And if I make
Mhm.
it to the light therapy lamp, I'm good.
What else has helped besides like the alarm? Like, because I know now we know that like so many things, like I don't know if this is if it's related to ADHD or not, but like so many things help you feel better rested. Like for example, nasal
Mhm.
strips and mouth tape, just breathing through your nose and getting enough oxygen can help you feel more refreshed in the morning to where you're not dreading to get out of bed, even if you do hit your alarm on a usually day basis. Like, have you tried any of those things that have helped you that aren't specifically alarms or like
Yeah,
sleep
actually,
supplements?
oh my gosh, yeah, sleep supplements, magnesium's huge. And I would say one of the biggest things is like no screens an hour before bed. Like that is such a big
Mm,
one that people like really, really overlook. And so I'm pretty strict with myself when like not checking my phone or like using social media and then dimming my lights before bed.
mm-hmm,
If I can do that, then I also find too something that works really well for me is like a really nice shower, like in candlelight. Like my process before I go to bed is like I dim all the lights and then I take a nice shower in candlelight. It's so calming and soothing on your nervous system. And then I crawl into bed and I have like a red light and only candlelight. And if I'm tired, I go straight to bed. And if I'm still awake, I read for a little bit and then until I'm tired.
so like the night routine, I guess, like Cody said again,
Yeah, it's
going through
important.
that. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really important. And I think like part of it's like no screens, like no spiking up your cortisol or like blocking your melatonin, but it's also like Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, like lowering your HR the most you can before bed is going to give you the deepest sleep.
Without a doubt, yeah. 100%. Increasing your HRV and decreasing your heart rate.
Hmm.
That's what the breathing through your nose helps with a lot,
Mhm.
is increasing your HRV. It's putting you further into a
Mm.
parasympathetic state, like a restful, like restorative state, if you will.
Hmm.
So it's huge. And I
Yeah.
saw you guys
Yeah.
sell that kind of stuff too. So talk to us about, are there any criticisms or skepticisms you guys get from people? Like we got to put on the skeptical consumer hat here. That's the final stage of this process. Like, what
Yeah.
is there any negative feedback you guys have gotten?
Yeah, of course. I think the main thing we struggle with is like education of our users. So when people get an alarm and get a Tavo and they think it's like a one quick fix thing, or like if they even have like a bad experience in the first week of it, they might start doubting it. Like, how is this even knowing that I track, like wake up in my light sleep? There's a lot of like misunderstanding around quality versus quantity of sleep. So even if someone uses an alarm and wakes up like before their technical like alarm time and then they go back to bed, it's like, well, no, if you get up like right before your alarm, you should stay up and you should, that's when your light sleep is versus going back to sleep and then getting woken up. So it's primarily like people getting it and treating it as a regular alarm. We're more like we should and we are focused on like educating and teaching people that this is like a different, like it's a fundamentally different way of looking at sleep and waking up. And so I think that's the biggest confusion we get is people getting it and maybe misaligned expectations. Other times, like people get our device and they think it's like a full-on sleep tracker, which we don't advertise as, but it can be like it can be kind of expected that we have a full blown out like Aura Ring sleep tracking, which we don't. We're primarily focused on the alarm and waking you up in light sleep, and I think the data on that comes secondary to the benefit. Like some people don't like sleeping with a wristband. That's been like a couple people have said that, but we're always working on new bands, new iterations, new factory, and new band that we're putting out in about a month. So like all the typical things, but I don't think like I don't know, as a founder entrepreneur, like I understand that like all these things can happen, like and we just have to learn from it. Like I said, the education is the biggest thing, and just kind of getting past that barrier of like being like, no, we're actually like we're based in science and we're doing this, but maybe it's not done perfectly. And if you give it maybe a week or two or maybe even 3 weeks, like your body will start to regulate to it and it will start to notice those benefits. But in this, like, I guess we live in a society where it's like, well, you buy something and it's like if it doesn't have the right education around it and someone has a bad experience one, two, three, first 3 nights or something like that, then that can flip. And we're getting better at that and getting better at setting up those expectations and letting people know that like this won't be an overnight process necessarily. It can wake you up in light sleep the next night, and it should. But if it doesn't, or if you feel like if it doesn't work like you expect it, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work eventually, or over time. Sleep, like I said, sleep is kind of you can it's like the Kaizen way. You don't want to just like shift your sleep schedule in one day and go from sleeping 12 a.m. to then 7:30 p.m. and completely, that's not really going to help you. More so taking a Kaizen way approach, little steps, maybe going to bed earlier, 10 minutes, maybe finding an alarm that works better for you. Maybe then try and experiment with nasal strips, mouth tape, so you get better airflow at night. I realize that like it's sleep, it's not like even if we do have this alarm, like it won't be necessarily a one kind of solution for everyone. A lot of people have different problems and different issues around sleep, whether it's not falling asleep, whether it's not having a circadian rhythm, whether it's they're actually like not breathing at night, and that's why they're waking up kind of groggy. So it's turned into like, okay, this device solves everything. That's what we thought it would do. To now, okay, let's try to support different sleep problems like falling asleep, like sleep quality, like deep sleep, as well as supporting someone's wake up and making sure they're waking up in light sleep and silently, in the most pleasant way possible. So, just I think typical startup things that like, we don't have the full education yet there. We don't have maybe our software's dialed in like a company that's been around for 20 years. But, I think we're on to something very much that's based in science, very much has a strong foundation. We have a lot of like strong foundational users that can speak to it. And so we're just kind of following that. And that's at least what what we're looking at. Yeah, you can't try to like, I guess, solve the whole world's problems or even solve everyone's problems. But what I like to do and what entrepreneurship like base building is finding something that works for one person and then trying to kind of teach other people how to use it. And first it started with me, then it was like a doctor we beta tested with. And when I saw that, it was like, okay, well, let's continue this and let's continue to see how many other people it can help, and then what education do we need to do. And the wider we spread, the more education we need, because at first people who are really interested and know about sleep got our product. Now if we're expanding, we're kind of taking the mass market, which maybe some people like have their sleep dialed in and know sleep, but some people don't. And so you have to provide that education. That's primarily what we're yeah what I think is a big missing piece in people like fully understanding a product, I think.
Makes sense. You might enjoy some this research out of UCLA, Stanford, Dr. Caroline Leaf around the magic of 63. It takes about 63 days to become a better sleeper or become a runner or become whatever it is, and identifying with the goal as opposed to just hoping that, oh, my sleep will mystically be fixed in one single day or night. That's just not how brains work. It takes about 63 to 84 days for that new neural network to form, and especially with your circadian rhythm, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
So that is
No,
a
that's
battle.
really powerful. Yeah. Yeah. That's I'm gonna have to write that down. What is it? 63 days?
Yeah, Dr. Caroline Leaf. She kind of spearheaded a lot of it, but there's more research out of UCLA and Stanford as well that talks about 63 to 84 days being the amount of time it really takes to not just form a habit, but create a new identity, which is a big difference. Instead of I want to run more, becoming a runner. I want to lift more, become a lifter. Like, and identifying with I want to sleep better, becoming a good sleeper. Like there's a difference
Yeah.
between the identity versus like a habit or like a thing.
Yeah. What does a good sleeper do? Who do I have to become a good sleeper, to have good sleep? Maybe go to bed a little earlier. Maybe not,
Exactly.
have a lot of food at night. Yeah. That's really cool. I resonate
Things
with
that
the
you do
identity
automatically and
shifting.
subconsciously already. Like even just the way that you describe how you think, feel, and believe about sleep is
Hmm.
because that's part of your identity. But not everybody has
Yeah.
that. But your identities drive behaviors automatically and subconsciously. And so if you can
Hmm.
become someone who values their sleep like you do, like I love the way that
Hmm.
you said you plan your day around sleep. Like that's beautiful. Most people do not do that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But they could, and they would automatically if that was their identity or part of their identity. And your product could be a
Yeah.
part of that too.
Yeah. I really like how you put that.
Oh yeah, dude. Let's talk about the future a little bit. That's our favorite section. What's on the roadmap? Like, what's next year, or even the next 10 years? Like, what do you see for the future?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're working towards this Tesla alarm clock that has automatic self-driving and that knows when, when your body needs to wake up. And I think that's technology-wise what we're working towards in Tavo. But it's like also I mentioned that our sleep and our wake up isn't necessarily like the alarm clock isn't the only thing that can help. And so I think ever since we launched the Tabo back in January of 2024, so about a year and a half ago, we've since expanded into other products, launching nasal strips, mouth tape, like going into the better breathing at night because it's such a big factor in how much rest you get. Also introducing a product called the Somnia Mat from the word insomnia because I struggled with insomnia a lot in college. And so we wanted to introduce a tool that can naturally help you with insomnia. And this is an acupressure mat that you lay on before bed that relaxes your nervous system, puts you in parasympathetic, and helps you just relax a little bit easier, taking the noise from your mind and kind of distributing it through your body. I think that's really cool. So, what I see in the future is not just the building an alarm clock brand, but building a brand more so around sleep and having different ways to support people's sleep, whether it's, whether it's continuing innovating on mouth tape nasal strips, whether it's continuing innovating on the ways to help people fall asleep, gummies, I don't know, consumables maybe. But the idea is that with the alarm, we can help people wake up. And with the other products, we help them with other, their sleep issues. Like I talked to a nurse one time and I was pitching the tablet to her and I was like, yeah, like this will help you wake up. And she's like, I don't even have a sleep cycle. Like I need to learn how to like sleep
Mhm.
first. And I was like, shoot, yeah, that's right. So now we're kind of, be able to help people who need to fall asleep, who have struggled falling asleep or relaxing, who want deeper sleep, and then we have the alarm clock. So I think that's a good trajectory of what it's kind of got all the bases covered more or less around sleep. And I think that's how we'll continue. We'll continue to develop the alarm clock, make it the best possible it can be, to know exactly when your body's completely ready to wake up. Obviously, there's so much we can do with that technology, so much like software, just like keep using Tesla as an example, but like I think the software piece of having an alarm clock and a wrist wearable and just what you can do with the software of it is like so much because there hasn't been yet a company that's is exactly focused on an alarm clock, more so sleep and optimizing the wake up. So there's so much room in that. There's I think other tools that can help people with sleep, like even earplugs, eye masks. There's things like that. So we want to bring solutions to help people sleep better, to help people enhance their sleep. And I think that's what the company will always be founded on, just to give people more of that like sleep knowledge, sleep consciousness. Just taking like someone like Olaf, and taking them through the journey to a point where they feel good about their sleep. They can wake up on their own time, and as long as we do that for the people that need it, the people that want it, I think like I'm very, I think our mission is fulfilled and we'll be satisfied. But as well, we want to continue pushing the frontier in innovation and educating people more so about the like how we look at sleep. Whether it's going from that alarm time, setting the alarm time, to looking at sleep duration. So I've always seen us as innovating the alarm clock and innovating the space and being literally the future of alarm clocks. And I think in 20 years, this is how everyone is going to wake up. Maybe not necessarily with a Tabo, but maybe something that wakes them up in their light sleep. Because I think this is a huge, huge like new area of knowledge we have unlocked, and just going with the whole wellness trend of the US and how we're moving away from necessarily getting up at like a certain time. Like in the past, I guess going back, mechanical alarm clocks were invented to get people up for factory jobs every single day at the same time, and like it made humans like more robotic because everything was super just like mechanical, and we would up at a certain time, and that's how that worked. And now we're more so moving into more hybrid work, more remote work, more people not necessarily having to get up at 8 a.m. exactly and going to work. So like there's a little bit of leeway there in the wake up period. And so I think, devices like these, devices like Tavo that'll wake you up in your light sleep, that'll be more calmer, maybe provide you some more feedback on your sleep. I think that's just the future of alarm clocks. And, like I said, whether it's us, whether it's a different company, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more sleep related tech and sleep products. And just because one, people are very interested in that, we have that knowledge, and because we're realizing how much it actually helps us, in our daily lives, whether it's with physical, emotional, mental health.
I love that vision for the future, especially as a founder who bases his team's list off their chronotype. I'm all for helping people sleep better. So let's do
That's
it.
awesome. That's awesome. That's something we definitely, like we've talked about as a team. We want to incorporate chronotypes into our data, into our like help people understand that like being a night owl is okay, and that's just part of your chronotype, or being a morning person. I think that's one cool thing we want to do, and I love that, basing your work style off your chronotype, or like that's so cool. That's definitely what we have in mind as well, and what we look at least.
Oh yeah, I love that. Let's move into the lightning lab. This is the last section, and the last question we always ask guests was actually left from a previous guest. And crazily enough, the person who left you a question, his name is Dr. Dan Party, and he is one of the leading neuroscientists on sleep. Like he studies sleep for a living. That's where he started. He's the chief health officer at Qualia now,
Wow.
but he's like a huge sleep guy. So it's just crazy that
Wow.
he's the one who left you a question.
That's
And this is
awesome.
just, we have no control over this stuff. It just, whatever
Uh-huh.
happens, but kind of wild. So you want to leave it with him, Chloe?
Yeah. Why did you get into what you got into? Cover this a little bit.
Why did I get into what I got into?
Mm.
I'm someone who loves to share and help people and uplift people, and more so I guess share the things that really work for me. And
Mhm.
because I had this unique accident and opportunity, and I was uniquely aware of my sleep, it really started with just sharing it with friends and being like, hey, this is really cool, you guys need to use this, like it wakes you up, when you're ready to wake up. And I thought it was magic, and so I just got behind that idea, and I wanted to share that with as many people as possible, as can be. And I just really have, my goal. Like I was helped so much through my injury by doctors, by my family, by friends, that I think it like also left a huge impact on me on how I want to help people. And so like helping people is like really part of my core identity. I just get joy out of that. Like I get joy from receiving feedback and messages being like, "Hey, this product is really awesome. It helped me. I got it from my husband." So like that is like you know, what I innately love to do. Just help people and bring them to a better like way of life, or a better solution, or help them with a problem. So I think that really just comes down to, yeah, me wanting to share something that I really felt that was, powerful in my life, the awareness of sleep that I had. And um I wanted to package that into one company and one tool that millions of people use, and share that with, with a bunch of people. Just also knowing how many people struggle with like waking up and their alarm clocks. I thought it was a pretty cool idea to do that. So yeah, I tried packaging up everything up in one company, and kind of that being my way of sharing this idea with people, and leaving them, or leading them towards better sleep health.
Mm. Beautiful. I love that
Beautiful.
mission. What's the question you want to leave for the next guest? You don't know who they are, but
Mm,
you leave them a question.
this is a good one. Maybe a little bit similar, but like one question we were asked in our entrepreneurship classes was like, why do you do what you do? And I think it kind of is very similar to the question I was asked. But like, what is the why do you currently do what you do? Maybe not like how you started it on it, but like why do you currently do what you do and what you're passionate about? Yeah. Why do you do what you do?
Got it. Got it. All right, cool. We'll ask it. We'll ask it to our next guest. We appreciate you hopping on here and joining the Decision Lab.
Yeah.
You made it through, man. You made it through. Is there any
Yeah,
place
thank
you'd
you
like to
so much
point
for
people
joining.
as they wrap up?
Awesome. Well, thank you so guys so much. Yeah, they can definitely visit our website at tabosleep.com, Tavo sleep.com, or check out our Instagram because we're doing a bunch of content on there. Tabo Sleep at Tabo Sleep. We are just launching our Android app and launching Android after a year and a half of development and not having Android, so people can check that out. And yeah, that's where you guys can find the company. As far as me, I'm Tadas Kunickas on LinkedIn, but I don't really go on there, so more so just company page.
Nice. I love it. I love some of the content you have on your Instagram too. You got good energy on camera, so that's a fun time. We'll put the links to that in the
Heck
description
yeah,
as
thank you.
well. So thank you so much again for hopping on here. Everyone
Hmm.
knows that we still have the lab results that Chloe and I will
Yeah,
hop on
thank
after we say bye to Thomas, but thank you for hopping on with us.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much. This is a really fun time.
Heck yeah. Peace. Welcome to the lab results section.
Yo,
Dragging Chloe along slowly here. It's been a long day for Chloe in
I'm still
Germany.
alive. I'm still good. I've just had back to back for 9 hours, so it's a lot for my little ADHD brain. A
You've been crushing it
lot of
though.
meetings.
You've been doing good. You've been doing
Mhm.
good. So let's talk Tabo here.
Yeah.
First of all, lab test. What do you think? Did they pass the lab test?
Yes, because I am a user and I do have one, and I have found that it's making my life easier. It is a lot easier to wake up with the vibrating alarm clock, especially as someone with ADHD that dreads mornings. I find it very helpful. Um, they don't have any research, however, it's based off of science, and my kind of take on this product as it's a wearable, and so there's not really like a huge risk. It's a little bit different than just taking a supplement or a pharmaceutical. You're probably not going to injure yourself with a device that vibrates on your wrist. So I feel like it's fairly low risk.
I would say it's low risk. I think they don't have research, so they're as far as like research backing, they're based on science, but not like research supported yet.
Mhm.
He said that they're looking to do that potentially in the future, which is awesome. We see that a lot in the companies that we talk to, so that's not nothing unusual. Um, I think there needs to be more research before I
Yeah.
would say like they've passed the lab test, because there's not a test yet. There hasn't been a test. User feedback is awesome, but it's also anecdotal. And
Mhm.
anecdotal, there's positivity bias and all sorts of stuff that uh, there's a reason anecdotal data is not like
Mhm.
like what we base research and stuff on. So that being said, like would we actually buy this? Sounds like Chloe would, since you already have one, which is awesome. For me, I am not their ideal client. Probably, I wake up without an alarm, so that's just A. And then when I do have one, I use my Whoop silent alarm to vibrate and wake me up in my light sleep as well. So conceptually, 100%. If you're not someone who wants a Whoop or wants to have like a monthly subscription and all that kind of stuff, highly recommend getting a Tabo. And I would recommend it to people like that. I just have too many. I am an anomaly. I have too many devices that I already wear to help with this stuff. So I am not the average. I get that, but I would recommend it to people that are looking to start to do this. And I had a Jawbone back in the day, like way back in the day. Like it's called a Jawbone, and it was a device that was its sole purpose was to wake you up in your light sleep. And this was like when I was in like high school. That's how far back this thing was.
That's crazy.
And it got discontinued. I couldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
like they went out of business, and I'm like, dude. So I would have been an early Tavo user if it'd been a few years earlier. But I digress. Any surprises or things that caught you off guard in this one?
I just thought his story was really powerful. Um, Especially, we're recovering from a brain injury, and and the doctor saying like you have to sleep, what was it, 10 hours a day? So that just goes to show like how important sleep is in your recovery.
Oh yeah. People don't realize it. The less hours of sleep you have in your life, the less hours of life you have. People, that's research supports that. And they don't understand, like, your brain is going and clearing out all of the trash from the day. Like, your cerebral spinal fluid shoots through like a jet through your brain and just clears out all the stuff that's between, from the day's processing and your brain work. And it just blows my mind that people don't understand that in relation to sleep. I see it after burnout too. A lot of people need 10, 11, like a ton to recharge what Dr. Rabin from Apollo calls your chi, or like that, like the energy back to your brain and really like resetting your baseline. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I felt that way after my concussions too. Common myth, sleeping is not bad when you have a concussion. Just gonna say, if you just got it and there's a risk of like a bleed or something like that, that's different than like in the recovery process. So I'll just put a disclaimer out there. Okay, cool. Any surprise moments or anything that you're like, that was cool?
Yeah, just the story about his recovery. That was amazing. How about you?
Let's see. I don't think there's any huge surprises necessarily. I mean, honestly, I thought it was kind of surprising he dropped out of school with a semester left. Like, that's honestly, that shows some dedication right there. That's wild. I like that. So
Totally
that was impressive.
Bold move. And I would argue like this day and age, like I honestly like, unless it's a degree that you need to like operate a certain business with, or like, but you know, I think you can get away without having that business degree.
Yeah, especially if it's for business. I've never had someone who got who, instead of getting an MBA, started a company. I've never had them come back and say, yeah, I wish I'd gotten the MBA. But I have had many MBAs say, I wish I just had started a company. And so that's, I think about that so often because people are always on my ass. You should do an MBA. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So, all right, sweet. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Decision Lab. Thank you so much for hopping in here, everybody. We love having you guys, and hope this lab results section gave you some clarity on this week's product. If you like this no BS approach to wellness, hit subscribe, please. We would love to see more of you here every week. And if you have a brand or an expert you want us to talk to, or a founder you want us to chat with, or a hot take that you want us to examine, drop in the comments, hit us up on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you guys. Otherwise, see you next time on the Decision Lab. Peace.